Hello all, this is a bit of a diversion from my normal videos. This is a demonstration, sort of a beta of a podcast that I want to put together, but I can't do it alone. I need a co-host, and the podcast in question is a chapter-by-chapter discussion of the Dresden Files book series. It is an urban fantasy series that I am a huge fan of, and it deserves this kind of treatment, and I want to give it to it. So here's what it would sound like, although ideally with a partner helping out. All right, welcome to this demonstration episode. We're going to start right at the beginning. Here we go. I heard the mailman approach my office door. Half an hour earlier than usual. He didn't sound right. His footsteps fell more heavily, jauntily, and he whistled. A new guy. Now, right here, in the first 3 sentences, we get a lot of useful information about Harry and the writing style, right? It's a noir story, which you might not necessarily know yet. It's a noir structure, tropes, etc. But he heard the mailman approach the door, but it's unusual, right? He's a half hour early, and he didn't sound right. That could be setting up a sort of maybe this guy's possessed, maybe he's coming to hurt Harry, maybe something is unusual. His footsteps fell more heavily. Even at this moment, it's still leading the reader on in thinking, hey, this could be something bad. But then it throws in jauntily, and he whistled. Oh, it's just a new guy. So the sentence itself is pushing you in one potential direction. He's here earlier than usual. Maybe that means it's not actually the mailman. He didn't sound right, and his footsteps fell more heavily. All those things implied to me the first time I read it that something's about to go down. But then it's just, oh, it's a new guy. The other thing these 3 sentences do is they help demonstrate. You've heard the expression show, don't tell, right? They demonstrate Harry's deductive capabilities. They show you why he's a good detective or PI. He puts two and two together, right? Somebody's coming down the hall. They're earlier than usual. Doesn't sound like the normal mailman. He's whistling. That probably means it's a new guy, right? He's observing all these things while he's reading a book, right? He hears this stuff happening and he's putting it together in his head, and you're sort of listening to it in his internal monologue. So the next thing that happens is the guy comes up at his office door and laughs. And as a reader, you're like, well, why is he laughing? Then the guy knocks and Harry winces. Now, why would Harry wince when somebody knocks on his door? Well, he kind of explains it here. He says, my mail comes through the mail slot unless it's registered. So that implies that he doesn't want to get registered mail, which I think is an allusion to later where we find out that he's pretty behind on his payments, on his bills. So these might be like final notice type bills that he needs to pay. That's why they're registered, to show that he got them. But I think the other reason that you could intuit here is that he winced because he heard the guy laugh, and he knows he has to go talk to this guy, and he knows he's going to have to go through what's about to follow, which is this guy's going to be like, oh man, you're not really a wizard, right? And he's done this song and dance a whole lot. So that brings us to the next section. The new mailman, who looked like a basketball with arms and legs and a sunburned, balding head, was chuckling at the sign on the door glass. He glanced at me and hooked a thumb towards the sign. You're kidding, right? So this is another introduction to something that you'll see throughout the entirety of the series, which is these similes, these noir-style similes. This guy looked like a basketball with arms and legs. It's just so colorful and evocative, and we get those all the time in this series. And a lot of the time it's used to comedic effect. Now, those kinds of similes are used often in noir stories, right? That's part of this structure. It's part of the tropes. She looked like a tall glass of water or something like that. So you can, you could picture Humphrey Bogart saying something like that, but probably not, she looked like a basketball with arms and legs. I expect that's probably not what you'd expect. But moving on. Obviously, this guy is also setting up some of the world building for us, right? Here, he's saying, you're kidding, right? And we find out he's looking at the thing on the wall, on the door that says, this is a wizard. And we now get to see Harry respond in a way that, yes, he's He's been through this dozens of times. He says he's a wizard. Everybody thinks he's joking, or he might mean something else, where we now say the guy's holding the mail. Harry's trying to take it from him. He held on to it, his head tilting curiously. So what? Some kind of fortune teller? Cards and crystal balls and things? No, I told him. I'm not a psychic. I tugged at the mail. He held on to it. What are you then? What's the sign on the door say? It says Harry Dresden Wizard. That's me, I confirmed. An actual wizard? He grinned as though I should let him in on the joke. Spells and potions, demons and incantations? Subtle and quick to anger? Not so subtle. I jerked the mail out of his hands and looked pointedly at his clipboard. Can I sign for my mail, please? So this little back and forth tells us a lot about Harry's interaction with quote-unquote normies, right? He's used to this song and dance, and what's more is he doesn't like it. You know, he feels a little bit of humiliation here. People don't believe him when he says he's a wizard, and that, you know, that stings a little bit. He knows why. Intellectually, he gets it. He gets why these people don't know. He's in the process of helping keep the secrets of the White Council and everything else that's going on. He's supposed to purposefully not tell anybody about all this. But at the same time, he wants people to believe him. He feels like he's an honest guy, and it hurts when people don't believe what he says. So that's the way that I interpret it anyway. And of course, here we have one of the famous references to 1,000 different things. Subtle and quick to anger, of course, is a reference to a line in The Lord of the Rings referring to Gandalf. Where's it? The Hobbit. I'll have to look at that after. Where they say wizards are subtle and quick to anger, and you should beware of them. And Harry's simple and very sort of wry, cunning response, or witty response of not so subtle, he rejects the subtle part as he jerks the mail out of the guy's hand. But that's like a double joke, because he's tried to be subtle for the previous conversation, right? He's trying to like tug at the mail, right? That he tugs at the mail earlier. He's just trying to take it politely. And when this guy keeps holding on to it, he has to then not be subtle and jerk the mail out of the guy's hand. And what's more is he's saying he's not subtle at this point because he tried to be subtle earlier, and he's not rejecting the quick to anger thing, implying that he is quick to anger, which is definitely true of Harry. We see a lot of his temper kind of getting him into trouble, but also often being the thing that can get him out of trouble. Often it's his anger at injustice or suffering of innocent people that don't deserve it. That is often what he uses to fuel his resistance to temptation, his resistance to giving up, right? In almost every one of these books, there's a moment where he's like at his lowest, and he thinks to himself, he goes over like, should I just give up right now? And often the things he uses to pick himself back up is his anger at injustice or suffering. And so this is a good sort of first impression. He is quick to anger, and it is both a blessing and a curse throughout the rest of the series. So now the mailman finally gets the hint and leaves angry. And then this is another interesting piece, right? You have to wonder, well, if Harry A doesn't like this, he doesn't like the humiliation, or at least just not people not believing him, why doesn't he just like do his little magic flame spell? Just bring a candle out and be like, hold this, boom, it's on fire now. Or like, here's a match, I'm gonna make like anything, call a little wind. Like, yeah, maybe some people are still gonna go, huh, you must have some really good tricks. Where's the fans in here? Yes, that might happen, but you might get people that go, I knew it was real. And then maybe you feel a little better about your life. But he has his reasons for not doing that. And I think we want to talk a lot about that going forward. Every time he is confronted by someone who doesn't believe him, and sometimes very much to his detriment, right? Carmichael, Murphy's partner that we meet later in the book, he doesn't believe that Harry is a real wizard. He thinks that Harry is a con man or deluded. And Carmichael has influence on Murphy. Carmichael is someone that could end Harry's meal ticket given the chance, right? So it's in Harry's best interest to convince Carmichael. Carmichael could be a good ally. Harry has already, later in the book, identified him as a good cop, right? He's a keen observer. So why doesn't Harry try to convince him? This is the first time we see him refuse to prove to someone that he is what he is. And the question of why doesn't he do that is an interesting one that we're going to examine later. Let's go through one more section here for the demo. He introduces himself. My name is Harry Blackstone Copperfield Dresden. Conjure it by your own risk. I'm a wizard. I work out of an office in Midtown Chicago. As far as I know, I'm the only openly practicing professional wizard in the country. You can find me in the Yellow Pages, under Wizards. Believe it or not, I'm the only one there. My ad looks like this. Harry Dresden, wizard, lost item found, paranormal investigations, consulting, advice, reasonable rates. No love potions, endless purses, parties, or other entertainment. You'd be surprised how many people call to ask me if I'm serious. But then, if you'd seen the things I'd seen, if you knew half of what I knew, you'd wonder how anyone could not think I was serious. That's a great little introduction to Harry. It tells us some more important things. Number one, lost items found. We learn later in this or the next chapter, I believe, actually the one where he meets Monica, we learn later that he is good at tracking spells. It's one of the things that he's sort of naturally gifted at. There's a lot of things he's not good at as a wizard. Obviously he's had formal training as a wizard as opposed to Victor Sells, the sorcerer that we see later. And in fact, Butcher has to give Harry a number of handicaps in this book because he tries to make it clear that Harry is clearly outclassing Victor on like every front. Victor is a 2-bit conjurer and Harry is the real deal. He wants us to believe that Harry is really that much better than Victor. But in order to make it an interesting contest, Harry has to be, concussed and like cold and without sleep and all these other sort of arrested. He has to have all these other handicaps that bring him down so that he is actually going to have a real knockdown drag out with Victor at the climax of the book. So we learn a little bit about what he's good at. He's good at finding lost items. He also will do paranormal investigations, consulting and advice. We learn later that he made his own little pamphlets to help people because that's his main motivation is he wants to help people. And he figures doing it as a sort of PI is the best way to do that. And he can help people who are coming into their power or maybe practitioners that don't have a lot of power, but they still have a little and maybe they need help controlling it. They sort of reference that he's done these sort of advice things to the local community. In fact, in the second book, in Full Moon, we learn that he does that with a character in that book with Kim Delaney, and he's been sort of helping her. She's not a full apprentice. He's just kind of like, she's coming to him with questions, right? She's sort of a lower level talent, probably not a full wizard per se, but he's been helping her. And this is sort of the introduction to that. The other thing that I think is very interesting here is, people call to ask if he's serious. But if you've seen the things that I've seen, if you knew half of what I knew, you'd wonder how anyone could not think I was serious. That is setting up a great little mystery for the reader. What is it he's seen? Obviously, he's been around the block, right? He's saying, the shit I've seen, you would not believe. Obviously, at this point, it's probably referring to when he had to fight his mentor, Justin, and kill him to get away from a horrible outsider and a spell that would have basically possessed him. So all of those things are kind of conjured up in that one sentence. It gets you hooked, interested. What has he seen? What does he know? I want to know more. So that's a quick introduction of what this show will be like. Right? We would keep doing that, reading certain excerpts, talking about them, going through how the particular writing and sentences here and there reflect throughout the rest of the book and into the rest of the series, and also what mysteries lie in there. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope we can find somebody else that can help me, because I don't think I can do this by myself. Just listening to one person talk to themselves like I've been doing here is not nearly as entertaining as listening to two people banter back and forth. So thanks for listening. Au revoir.